talk about lines. Improvising, especially in a jazz context, is hard. So let's take a look at some systems that we can put in place to compose some lines. At least get started with some ideas. When they teach you how to improvise, they say, oh, play the scale, play the arpeggio. Cool. And you get a bunch of stuff that sounds like... which is fine. That fits the 2-5-1 in C exactly, but it's not it. So I like to take little melodic fragments, little ideas, and play them throughout the pitch collections and the positions. You can start real simple with like scales and thirds. In all the positions, etc., etc. That's a good starting point. Let's see what we can do to make that sound sort of like a 2-5-1. Mostly thirds. A couple of little extra things here and there, but that's fine. What I like about thirds is that if you put them together, you get the diatonic seventh chords. And a way to practice the diatonic seventh chords in all the positions is to play them and then go down the scale. Because this can be a little bit of a finger twister and a pick twister, which can discourage a lot of people from really putting the required time into this concept. So I just turn it around with a little scale fragment. I call it diatonic seventh chords with scale descent. It's a fancy way of saying skip every other note till you have 4 notes and go down the scale. The full bar of 8 notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. That was F major 7. I just so happened to land on G. And I can play G7. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Land on A. That in and of itself is almost like the, if y'all remember this, the 1-minute jazz lessons. The super most sterile 2-5-1 lick. So with that in mind, I'm starting on the root there of D minor 7, and it lands me on the 3rd of C major 7. So what I thought to do was take it from the 3rd of D minor rather than the root. And that's kind of cool. So that same principle applies to any sort of line that we compose with these melodic segments. Diatonic seventh chord, scale fragments, thirds. A couple others that I really like to use are chromatic enclosures, even just a chromatic approach note. There's a D minor 7 arpeggio, but I approached the first note that I played with a half step below. I approached the first and last note with a half step below. That was all the notes. So that's something you can do with your ideas. You can add an approach note. Sometimes you'll have to modify the rhythm. So the diatonic seventh chords, I can approach each of those with a chromatic approach tone, but I gotta turn it into a triplet. And the approach tone is like a pickup. Now we're getting somewhere. So that little idea, something I will use all of the time, over all of the chords and all the spots of the neck. Oh, what was that? Call that one tone of the Barry Harris chromatic scale. That's the Barry Harris chromatic scale, as I understand it. So I can play a 7th chord and one tone of Barry Harris chromatic descending. And then I can continue the Barry Harris chromatic. That was a 7th chord with a chromatic approach tone, one tone of Barry Harris chromatic, and an enclosure. was a same pattern but with more Barry Harris chromatic on the end. So being able to daisy chain these ideas together is how I come up with a lot of my ideas. So how do we practice that? Sets of 2. I always like doing things in sets of 2. Diatonic 7th chord into an enclosure. Enclosure into a diatonic 7th chord. If I practice all of my small segments together, I will never run out of combinations of things to play, because there are always more small segments to gain control over. My thought and my theory on this is that if you practice all sorts of different melodic ideas in different spots on the guitar, when you do hear something in your head that you want to play, you'll be able to grab it because you've played something like it before. I really don't know how people play things that they've never played before. You just reach it out of them. So for us mortals, I got some systems that we can incorporate to learn how to make lines. As always, thank you for watching my video. Please subscribe for more guitar content. And if you're interested in what I have to say, think about booking a lesson. It's real easy. I got one-on-one lessons and group lessons, and I hope to see some of you there. Practice!